Most animals on Earth are born, grow, and die within a fraction of a human lifetime. A mouse lives for 2 years. A dog, perhaps 12. Even many large mammals rarely see old age. And yet humans, fragile at birth and slow to mature, often live long enough to watch several generations replace them. From an evolutionary perspective, this is strange. Nature usually rewards speed, early reproduction, and short lives. Long aging bodies are costly, inefficient, and unnecessary for survival. So why did humans take the opposite path? Why did our species evolve to grow old? While most animals are shaped to die young, most living creatures on Earth are not meant to grow old. They are meant to live briefly, reproduce, and disappear. When we observe the natural world carefully, this pattern appears almost everywhere, quietly and consistently. Many insects live only days or weeks. Small mammals often survive for just a few years. Even animals that seem large and strong rarely reach what humans would call old age. Their lives usually end long before their bodies slowly weaken over time. This does not mean something went wrong. It means the body was never shaped to last for long in the first place. In nature, short lives are not mistakes. They are the normal result of how survival works. The natural environment is uncertain and dangerous. Food can disappear without warning. Weather can change suddenly. Predators are always nearby. Injuries happen often and are rarely healed completely. Under these conditions, survival is not about lasting many decades. Survival is about growing fast, becoming capable quickly, and reproducing before danger arrives. Once reproduction has taken place, nature no longer continues to invest energy in keeping the body strong. There is no long-term plan to maintain the body carefully after its main task is complete. Because of this, most animals are built to spend their energy early in life. Their bodies focus on rapid growth, early strength, and immediate function. They do not focus on slow repair or long maintenance. Small damage is often ignored. Cells are replaced quickly but not perfectly. Over time, wear builds up quietly without being corrected. Eventually, the body can no longer keep up, and life ends. This is not failure. This is efficiency. From an evolutionary point of view, a body that lasts too long without reproducing is wasteful. Energy spent on long survival could have been used to produce more offspring. That is why natural selection usually favors early reproduction rather than long life. Animals that reproduce sooner pass on their traits more effectively than those that survive longer but reproduce late. As a result, many species are shaped around short lifespans. Their entire biology reflects this strategy. Their bones, muscles, and organs are strong enough for early adulthood, but they are not built to support decades of aging. Their bodies burn energy quickly, like a fire designed to burn bright rather than slow. Once that fire begins to weaken, nothing steps in to protect it. Death arrives not as an accident, but as the expected conclusion. If we step back and look at this pattern calmly, we begin to notice something important. In the natural world, growing old is unusual. Remaining alive long after reproduction is complete is rare. Most animals disappear quietly before age becomes visible. They leave little evidence of long decline. This makes the human experience stand out sharply. Humans are born weak, grow slowly, and take many years to become independent. And yet many humans live long after reproduction slows or ends. To understand why humans grow old while most animals die young, we must first accept this simple truth. Nature does not favor long life by default. Long life must appear for a specific reason. Until we understand why short lives are the rule, we cannot understand why humans became the exception. In wild nature, life is shaped by constant pressure, and this pressure quietly explains why most animals do not live long. Every day brings new risks that the body cannot fully prepare for. Food may be scarce one season and abundant the next. Weather can shift from calm to deadly within hours. Predators adapt quickly and never stop searching. Under such conditions, the safest strategy is not to last a long time, but to act quickly. Animals that grow fast and reproduce early have a better chance of leaving offspring before something goes wrong. This simple rule slowly shapes the body over many generations. Muscles develop early, bones harden quickly, energy is spent on movement, alertness, and speed. There is little reason to save energy for the distant future. The future is uncertain, and the body is not built to wait for it. Because danger is always present, the animal body becomes focused on the present moment. It learns to respond, to flee, to fight, or to hide. Long-term repair is not a priority. Small injuries accumulate. Minor weaknesses are ignored. If an animal survives long enough to reproduce, its biological mission is complete. There is no reward in nature for surviving quietly afterward. In fact, survival after reproduction can even become a disadvantage. An older animal moves more slowly. It competes with younger members of its own species for food and space. It may attract predators more easily. From the perspective of the group, losing older individuals is not harmful. New generations replace them quickly. This cycle keeps the population flexible and responsive to the environment. Because of this, nature does not protect age. It protects reproduction. Over time, this creates bodies that are efficient but temporary. Their organs are strong but not built for long use. Their cells divide quickly but make more mistakes. Repair systems exist, but only at a basic level. The goal is not perfection. The goal is speed. When damage grows beyond what the body can handle, life ends without resistance. This pattern is repeated across countless species and ecosystems. It is not cruel, it is neutral. Nature does not plan for comfort, memory, or reflection. It only responds to survival in the moment. Seen this way, dying young is not tragic in the natural world. It is expected. It is part of the design that keeps life moving forward. When we imagine animals growing old peacefully, we are projecting human ideas onto a system that does not share them. The wild does not slow down to care for the aging. It moves forward through replacement, not preservation. This is why old age is rare outside human society. Animals do not carry extra time with them. They carry only what is needed to reach reproduction. Everything beyond that is unnecessary weight. Understanding this helps us see the human story more clearly. Humans did not inherit long life simply by chance. They did not drift into old age accidentally. If long life exists in humans, it must have emerged against this powerful natural rule. Before we ask why humans grow old, we must first recognize how strong the pull toward short lives truly is. Only then can the human exception begin to make sense. When we look at how animals live and die, it becomes clear that short life is not only common, but carefully shaped by time. Over many generations, bodies are adjusted to match a world where danger is constant and time is uncertain. In such a world, it makes little sense to invest in a body that must last for decades. What matters is whether the body can function well during the short window when reproduction is possible. Everything else becomes secondary. This is why most animals are built to reach adulthood quickly. Growth happens fast. Strength appears early. The body prepares for action, not for reflection. Once this stage passes, there is no strong reason for the body to remain stable. Maintenance slows down. Repairs become less careful. Small problems are tolerated rather than fixed. Over time, these problems add up. The body weakens, and life ends. This pattern repeats so often that it becomes invisible. We rarely question it because it feels normal. A bird dying after a few seasons does not surprise us. A deer failing to survive many winters does not feel unusual. These lives end not because the environment failed them, but because their bodies were shaped with limits that matched their world. Another important part of this pattern is population balance. In nature, space and resources are limited. If animals lived too long, populations would grow beyond what the environment could support. Short lives prevent this. They allow new generations to replace old ones quickly. This keeps populations flexible and responsive. Younger animals adapt faster to changes. They move more easily. They require fewer resources. From the perspective of survival, replacing the old with the young is more efficient than preserving everyone. This is why age does not hold special value in the wild. Experience does not outweigh speed. Memory does not outweigh strength. Once an animal slows down, it becomes vulnerable. Nature does not protect it. There is no system designed to support long decline. Aging happens quietly and without assistance. When the body can no longer keep up, life ends. This is not seen as loss. It is simply the next step. Over thousands of years, this process creates a powerful rule. Life moves forward by replacement, not by preservation. Bodies are temporary tools, not long-term investments. Understanding this rule helps us see that long life is not the default outcome of evolution. It must be earned by offering something valuable in return. Without a clear benefit, long life would disappear quickly. The energy required to maintain a body for many decades is high. If that energy does not improve survival or reproduction, it will not be favored. That is why, across the animal world, old age remains rare. Most creatures exit the stage before age becomes visible. They leave behind offspring, not memories. When we step back and view this calmly, we can see that the question is not why animals die young. The question is why any species would evolve to resist this rule. Short life works. It keeps populations moving. It matches a world full of danger. If humans somehow moved away from this pattern, it means something very unusual happened. Something changed the value of time itself. But to understand that change, we must first fully accept how strong the natural pull towards short life truly is. When scientists study how different species live, grow, and die, they notice a quiet pattern that repeats again and again. Evolution does not plan for the distant future. It does not look ahead and decide that living long is a good idea. Instead, evolution responds only to what helps survival and reproduction in the present moment. This is why early life matters so much more than old age in the natural world. A body that can reach adulthood quickly and reproduce early has already succeeded, even if it does not last long afterward. From this perspective, living long is not a goal. It is only tolerated when it does not interfere with reproduction. Every living body must divide its limited energy between several tasks. It must grow. It must move. It must find food. It must reproduce. It may also repair itself, but repair is expensive. Keeping tissues healthy over many years requires constant work. Cells must be replaced carefully. Damage must be corrected. Mistakes must be avoided. All of this costs energy. If energy is limited, something else must be reduced. In most animals, long-term repair is the first thing to be sacrificed. Instead of investing energy in a body that might be destroyed tomorrow, evolution favors bodies that use energy quickly while the opportunity exists. This trade-off explains why many animals age rapidly once they reach maturity. Their systems are strong enough to function for reproduction, but not designed for long maintenance afterward. Over time, small failures appear, organs lose efficiency, cells divide with more errors. None of this is actively prevented, because preventing it would not increase reproductive success. In environments where death can arrive suddenly, there is little advantage in preparing for old age. This way of thinking is supported by comparisons across many species. Animals that live in safer environments, such as islands with few predators, often evolve longer lifespans. Animals exposed to constant danger tend to live shorter lives. The difference is not intelligence or size, it is risk. When external threats are high, evolution does not invest in longevity. When external threats are lower, the body can afford to maintain itself longer. This shows that aging speed is not random. It follows the logic of survival. From this viewpoint, dying young is not a flaw. It is the expected outcome of a system that prioritizes reproduction over preservation. The body is treated as a temporary tool. Once it has completed its primary function, there is no strong pressure to keep it intact. This also explains why many animals show little sign of gradual aging. They do not slowly decline over decades. Instead, they function well, then fail quickly. Their lives end before long, deterioration becomes visible. This pattern makes sense in a world where time is uncertain. If an animal is unlikely to survive many years anyway, investing in long repair would waste energy. Understanding this helps clarify an important idea. Evolution does not reward long life simply because it is long. It only allows long life when it supports survival and reproduction in some way. Without a clear benefit, longevity disappears. This is the rule that governs most of the animal world. Any species that breaks this rule must be offering something unusual in return. And this is where the human story begins to diverge, slowly and quietly, from the pattern that dominates nature. Another way to see why evolution favors short lives is to look at how bodies decide where to place their effort over time. Every organism lives with limits. Energy is never unlimited. Time is never guaranteed. Because of this, the body must constantly choose what matters most right now. In most animals, the answer is clear. What matters most is reaching adulthood and reproducing before danger arrives. This decision is not made consciously. It is built quietly into the body through generations of selection. Growth is fast. Sexual maturity comes early. Muscles, senses, and reflexes are sharpened quickly. The body becomes useful as soon as possible. What does not help with this immediate task is reduced or delayed. Long-term repair belongs to this category. Repair is slow. It does not help the animal escape a predator or compete for a mate today, so repair is limited. This explains why many animals show strong performance early in life, followed by rapid decline. Their bodies are not collapsing suddenly. They are simply following a plan that never included long maintenance. This pattern also explains why animals often die from causes that seem minor to humans. An infection, a small injury, or a short period without food can be fatal. The body does not carry deep reserves. It does not hold extra time. It is balanced tightly around immediate survival. In contrast, building a body that lasts a long time requires a different strategy. It requires slowing growth. It requires delaying reproduction. It requires investing energy into repair systems that work quietly in the background. These systems must fix damage, reduce errors, and maintain balance year after year. For most animals, this strategy is too costly. Delaying reproduction increases the risk of leaving no offspring at all. Investing in long repair may never pay off if death arrives early. As a result, evolution tends to avoid this path. It chooses certainty over potential. It prefers a body that reproduces early, even if it fades quickly afterward. This trade-off can be observed across many species without needing complex measurements. Animals that grow fast tend to live short lives. Animals that mature slowly tend to live longer. This is not coincidence. It reflects how energy is divided. Fast growth uses energy quickly and leaves little for maintenance. Slow growth spreads energy over time and allows more careful repair. In most environments, fast growth wins. This is why short life remains common. It is also why aging is often abrupt in animals. They do not slowly drift into old age. They perform well, then fail. The body does not attempt to protect itself once performance drops. There is no advantage in doing so. Seen through this lens, aging is not an enemy that evolution tries to fight. It is a byproduct of how energy is spent earlier in life. When energy is directed toward growth and reproduction, something else must give way. Usually, that something is long-term stability. This way of life works well in a dangerous world. It produces many offspring quickly. It adapts rapidly to change. It keeps populations moving. There is little room for reflection, memory, or long decline. All of this helps us understand how unusual long human life truly is. Humans did not simply add years onto an animal pattern. They followed a different balance. To understand that difference, we must keep this rule in mind. Evolution accepts short lives easily. It accepts long lives only when the trade-off becomes worthwhile. When all these patterns are placed side by side, a clear picture begins to form. Evolution does not ignore aging, but it also does not try to prevent it. Aging appears because the body is built to succeed early, not to last forever. In most animals, the years that matter are the first ones. During this time, the body must grow, compete, and reproduce. If it can do these things well, it has already fulfilled its role. Anything that happens afterward has little effect on whether its traits continue. Because of this, there is no strong pressure to protect the body far into the future. The systems that would be needed to slow aging are complex and costly. They require careful repair, constant balance, and long-term stability. In a world where death often arrives suddenly, such systems rarely pay for themselves. Evolution therefore allows aging to unfold without resistance. It does not remove it, because removing it would not increase reproductive success for most species. This is why aging looks less like a problem and more like a quiet consequence. It is what happens when energy is directed elsewhere. Another important point is that evolution works through averages, not individuals. Even if a single animal could benefit from living longer, that benefit matters only if it increases the number of surviving offspring across many generations. If most members of a species die young due to predators, hunger, or accidents, then extending lifespan would not change the outcome. The few individuals who survive longer would be exceptions, not the rule. Evolution responds to what is common, not what is possible. As a result, aging remains largely untouched. It is neither selected for nor actively removed. It simply persists. This helps explain why aging often feels unmanaged in animals. There is no smooth transition into old age. Bodies do not slow down gently. Instead, performance remains high for a while, then drops. The decline may seem sudden, but it has been developing quietly all along. Small errors accumulate. Repairs fall behind. Eventually, a threshold is crossed, and the body can no longer function. From the outside, this looks like a quick end. From the inside, it is the result of years of limited maintenance. This pattern holds across many forms of life. It is not tied to intelligence or awareness. It is tied to how energy is allocated. When survival depends on speed and reproduction depends on timing, there is little room for long preservation. Understanding this makes one thing clear. Short life is not a flaw in nature's design. It is a logical outcome of how life competes in uncertain environments. The body is treated as a tool meant to work well for a short time. Once its main purpose is complete, it is allowed to fade. This way of life has proven successful again and again. It produces flexible populations that adapt quickly. It keeps resources circulating. It prevents stagnation. Seen from this angle, long life becomes the unusual case. It requires a reason strong enough to overcome this default rule. It requires conditions where time itself gains value. Before we can understand why humans grow old, we must fully accept how firmly evolution favors short lives. Only then does the human departure from this pattern begin to stand out as something that needs explanation. When we move from general evolutionary rules to the physical body itself, another pattern becomes clear. Many animal bodies are built to burn fast rather than last long. Their systems are designed to release energy quickly, grow rapidly, and respond immediately to danger. This way of living is effective in the wild, where hesitation can mean death. A fast body can run, jump, fight, and reproduce within a short window of time. To support this speed, the body uses energy freely. Food is converted into movement, heat, and strength without much saving. Repair happens only when it does not interfere with action. This creates a body that works intensely, but briefly. Over time, this constant use leaves marks. Muscles weaken, organs lose balance, small damage accumulates. Because repair is limited, these changes are not fully corrected. The body keeps going until it cannot anymore. This is why many animals seem strong and capable right up until shortly before they die. They are not slowly aging in a visible way. They are wearing down quietly on the inside. Another reason animal bodies burn fast is competition. In the wild, animals are constantly competing for food, space, and mates. Those that move faster or grow sooner often gain an advantage. This pressure pushes bodies toward early peak performance rather than long stability. Energy that could have been used for careful maintenance is instead spent on speed and power. From an evolutionary point of view, this trade-off makes sense. A body that performs well early will leave more offspring than a body that saves energy for later years it may never reach. Over many generations, this pattern shapes the structure of tissues and organs. Systems that would protect the body over decades are reduced. Systems that support quick action are strengthened. This can be seen in how animals respond to stress. Many animals handle short bursts of stress very well. They can escape danger or fight intensely for brief moments, but long-lasting stress damages them quickly. Their bodies are not built to remain balanced under slow pressure. This again reflects a focus on immediate survival rather than long-term health. Another quiet sign of this fast-burning design is how animals recover from injury. Minor injuries can heal, but full recovery is rare. Scar tissue replaces original structure. Function returns enough to survive, but not enough to restore perfection. Over time, these imperfect repairs accumulate. The body becomes less flexible, less resilient. Eventually, a small failure leads to collapse. This process is not dramatic. It happens silently. The body simply runs out of balance. In environments where danger is constant, there is little benefit in preventing this slow breakdown. A body that invests heavily in perfect repair would use energy that could have been spent on reproduction. That energy trade-off would reduce its chances of passing on traits. As a result, fast-burning bodies dominate the animal world. They work well for a short time, then fade. This pattern is not a mistake. It is the result of long selection under harsh conditions. Understanding this helps us see that animal aging is not an accident or a flaw. It is the expected outcome of a design that values speed over endurance. When we compare this to humans, the difference becomes striking. Humans are not built to burn fast in the same way. Their bodies grow slowly, peak later, and invest more in long-term balance. To understand why, we must continue tracing how the human body began to follow a different path. Another way to understand why animal bodies burn fast is to look at how they handle repair over time. Every living body experiences damage each day. Cells wear out. Proteins lose their shape. Small mistakes happen during growth and use. In a body built for long life, these problems must be corrected carefully and repeatedly. That kind of repair takes patience, precision, and steady energy. Most animals do not live in conditions that allow for this. Their lives demand constant movement and quick response. Energy must be available right now, not saved for slow repair. Because of this, repair systems in animals are designed to be fast rather than perfect. They fix what is necessary to keep going, but they do not restore the body to its original state. Over time, this creates small weaknesses that quietly grow. Another important factor is how animal bodies replace their cells. Many tissues are renewed quickly, but rapid renewal increases the chance of errors. New cells may not function exactly like the old ones. Structures may lose their original balance. These changes are small at first and rarely noticed. But as they accumulate, the body becomes less stable. This does not cause immediate failure. The animal continues to function, hunt, and reproduce. The breakdown happens beneath the surface. Eventually, the margin of safety disappears. A small stress that once could be handled becomes too much. The body reaches a point where it can no longer compensate. Life ends. This process explains why animals often appear healthy until shortly before death. They are not protected by systems that gradually slow aging. Instead, they rely on systems that keep them functioning until the limits are reached. Another aspect of this fast-burning design is how animal bodies manage balance. Long-lived bodies must carefully control temperature, chemistry, and internal rhythms over many years. This requires stability and fine adjustment. Many animals do not maintain this level of control. Their balance systems are flexible but fragile. They can adapt quickly to change, but they cannot maintain perfect balance for long periods. This again reflects a focus on short-term survival rather than endurance. When conditions shift beyond a narrow range, the body struggles. Recovery is possible only if stress is brief. Long stress overwhelms the system. Over time, this leads to gradual loss of control. This loss does not feel dramatic. It feels like exhaustion, weakness, or sudden failure. From an evolutionary perspective, this design is acceptable. The animal has already completed its role before these problems become severe. There is no strong advantage in preventing them. Investing energy in long-term balance would reduce early performance. That reduction could mean fewer offspring. Over many generations, bodies that saved energy for repair would lose ground to bodies that spent energy early. As a result, fast repair and fast decline became common. This is not because animals are poorly designed. It is because they are designed for a specific purpose in a specific world. A world where danger is constant does not reward patience. It rewards readiness. It rewards speed. When we view animal bodies through this lens, aging stops looking like a malfunction. It becomes a predictable outcome. The body works intensely, repairs just enough, and then gives way. This helps us understand how unusual it is for a species to invest deeply in long repair. Such investment only makes sense if the future matters. If time itself becomes valuable, this idea prepares us to see why the human body began to follow a slower, more careful path, one that allowed aging to stretch across many years instead of ending abruptly. When we place all these physical details together, the logic of short animal lives becomes even clearer. Animal bodies are not unfinished versions of a longer plan. They are complete designs shaped for a specific rhythm of life. That rhythm values quick readiness, early strength, and immediate response. Everything in the body supports that rhythm. Energy flows toward muscles, senses, and movement. Systems that would preserve the body far into the future are kept simple. This is not because animals are less complex, but because complexity must serve a purpose. In the wild, a body that is perfectly maintained but slow to act is at a disadvantage. Speed matters more than durability. This trade-off appears in how animals use energy day by day. They do not store large reserves meant to last many years. They convert food into action quickly. They remain alert, reactive, and ready. Over time, this constant activity leaves little room for deep recovery. Rest restores function, but it does not rebuild the body completely. Small losses remain, joints stiffen, organs lose fine control. The body adjusts by compensating rather than repairing. Compensation works for a while. Muscles support weaker joints. Other organs take over missing tasks. But compensation increases strain elsewhere. Eventually the balance becomes fragile. A small disruption can break it. This moment often appears sudden, but it has been approaching quietly for a long time. Another important factor is how animal bodies deal with time itself. They are not built to count years. They are built to respond to moments. Their internal clocks focus on daily cycles, seasons, and immediate needs. Long spans of time do not guide their structure. There is no biological reason for most animals to remain stable for decades. Their world changes too quickly. Predators adapt. Food sources shift. Habitats transform. In such a world, flexibility matters more than longevity. A body that can be replaced by the next generation adapts faster than one that persists unchanged. This again favors short lives. It keeps populations young and responsive. It allows new traits to appear quickly. Long-lived bodies slow this process. They hold on to older designs longer. In most environments, that is a disadvantage. This helps explain why animals rarely show signs of prolonged aging. They do not experience long periods of slow decline. Their bodies are not built for that stage. Instead, they move from full function to failure within a narrow window. This is not because their bodies suddenly stop working. It is because the margin for error disappears. Once compensation can no longer keep up, the system collapses. From a human perspective, this may look harsh. From an evolutionary perspective, it is efficient. Life continues through replacement rather than repair. Seen this way, short animal lives are not tragic stories cut short. They are complete cycles shaped by the demands of survival. Each body does what it needs to do within its time, then gives way. Understanding this prepares us for the contrast that follows. If humans experience long aging, it is not because they escaped this logic accidentally. It is because their bodies and their way of living slowly began to place value on time itself. That shift did not happen at once. It unfolded gradually as human life moved into a different balance. To understand that balance, we must now turn our attention away from animal bodies and toward the unique conditions that shaped the human path. When we turn our attention to humans at the very beginning of life, the difference becomes clear immediately. Human babies are born weak, slow, and completely dependent on others. They cannot walk, feed themselves, or protect their own bodies. Compared to most animals, this is an unusual and risky way to enter the world. Many animals are born ready to move within hours or days. Some can stand, follow their parents, or find food almost immediately. Human infants cannot do any of this. For a long time, they rely entirely on care. From a survival point of view, this seems like a poor design. A helpless baby is vulnerable to cold, hunger, and danger. If short life were the rule humans followed, this strategy would fail quickly. And yet, it did not fail. Humans survived and spread. This tells us something important. From the very start, human life followed a different balance. Instead of growing fast, humans grow slowly. Instead of becoming independent early, humans remain dependent for years. This slow beginning forces the body to invest differently. Growth is stretched over a long period. Organs develop gradually. The brain continues to change and learn long after birth. This slow process requires stability. A body that will spend many years growing cannot afford to fall apart early. It must be maintained carefully. Even in childhood, the human body shows signs of this long-term approach. Systems that regulate temperature, healing, and balance are active early and work steadily. Injuries heal more fully. Growth adjusts over time rather than rushing toward an early peak. This does not mean the human body is stronger at every moment. In fact, early life is fragile, but that fragility is protected by social care. Parents, families, and groups create a buffer around the child. This protection changes the meaning of survival. The body is no longer alone against the environment. Because of this support, the human body can afford to slow down. It does not need to rush into early reproduction at the cost of long-term health. Instead, it can delay maturity and invest in learning, coordination, and resilience. Over time, this delay reshapes the entire life course. A body that matures late also tends to age more slowly. The same systems that support long development support longer maintenance. This connection is not accidental. When growth is slow, repair tends to be more careful. When development takes years, the body must remain stable for years. This creates the foundation for longer life. Another important difference is how humans store experience. Skills, knowledge, and memory take time to build. A short life would waste these investments. If humans were to die young, much of what they learned would disappear unused. The value of long childhood only makes sense if adulthood lasts long enough to apply that learning. This again places pressure on the body to remain functional beyond early reproduction. Seen this way, human weakness at birth is not a flaw. It is the starting point of a long path. A path that trades speed for durability. A path that moves slowly but reaches farther. Understanding this helps us see that human longevity did not appear suddenly at old age. It began quietly at birth, in the choice to grow slowly, depend on others, and invest in a future that extended far beyond the early years of life. As humans grow beyond early childhood, the slow rhythm of development continues in ways that further separate them from most animals. Human children take many years to reach physical strength, coordination, and full independence. During this long period, the body does not rush toward a final form. Bones continue to adjust. Muscles strengthen gradually. Internal systems learn to regulate themselves more precisely over time. This extended development is unusual in the animal world. In most species, reaching adulthood quickly is essential. But for humans, growing slowly becomes an advantage. A body that develops over many years must remain stable for many years. This creates pressure to maintain balance rather than peak early. The body learns to repair itself carefully, not just quickly. When injuries occur, healing aims to restore function as fully as possible, not simply enough to survive the next moment. This careful approach carries forward into adulthood. The human body is shaped to handle long stretches of time, not just short bursts of effort. Another important feature of this slow development is how it shapes the nervous system. Human coordination, decision-making, and emotional control improve gradually. These abilities require long periods of practice and adjustment. A short life would not allow them to mature fully. Because of this, the body supports long-term stability. It protects systems that must remain reliable for decades. This again links slow growth to long maintenance. A body that expects to be used for many years must invest in durability. This investment does not mean humans avoid decline. It means decline is spread out over time. Instead of burning fast and failing suddenly, the human body slows down gradually. This pattern is visible in how humans age compared to most animals. Aging is extended, not abrupt. The body does not collapse quickly once reproduction is complete. It continues to function, often for many years, even as strength and speed slowly decrease. Another key difference is how human bodies handle learning and skill. Many human abilities improve with age rather than decline. Skillful movement, problem-solving, and social understanding deepen over time. These gains would be meaningless in a short life. For them to matter, the body must remain active long after early adulthood. This again encourages maintenance over speed. The body is not simply carrying flesh and bone, it is carrying accumulated experience. That experience becomes more valuable as time passes. This changes the balance of survival. In humans, staying alive longer increases the value of what has already been learned. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes long life less wasteful. The energy spent maintaining the body continues to produce returns through skill, guidance, and contribution to the group. This is very different from most animals, where learning reaches a limit early and offers little advantage later in life. The slow pace of human development also reduces the pressure to reproduce immediately. Humans can afford to delay reproduction without losing all opportunity. This delay further supports a long lifespan. A body that expects to reproduce later must survive longer. All of these elements reinforce one another. Slow growth encourages careful repair. Careful repair supports long life. Long life makes slow learning worthwhile. Together, they form a stable pattern. By the time humans reach adulthood, their bodies are already committed to endurance rather than speed. Aging does not begin as a sudden decline. It unfolds gradually as part of a long life course. This slow unfolding is not an accident. It is the natural result of choosing a developmental path that values time itself. To understand human aging, we must see it as the continuation of this long preparation, not as a separate stage that begins at the end. When we follow the human life course further, another quiet difference becomes clear. Humans do not stop being useful once reproduction slows or ends. In most animals, the body's value drops sharply after the reproductive period. Strength fades, speed declines, and there is little left that helps the group survive. But in humans, usefulness does not disappear with age. It often changes shape. As the body slows, experience grows, knowledge accumulates, memory deepens. These qualities take time to form and cannot appear in a short life. Because of this, human aging unfolds in a different way. The body is not abandoned once early adulthood passes. It continues to be maintained well enough to support long participation in social life. This is not because the body avoids decline, but because decline is slowed and managed. Human bodies lose strength gradually rather than suddenly. This gradual change allows people to remain active contributors for many years. From an evolutionary point of view, this matters. Groups that retained older members gained access to skills, judgment, and shared memory. These qualities improved survival, especially in complex environments. Older individuals could guide hunting strategies, remember seasonal patterns, or resolve conflicts within the group. None of this required peak physical performance. It required time. For these contributions to exist, the body had to remain functional long past the age of reproduction. This created pressure to maintain health rather than discard it quickly. The human body responded by extending its maintenance systems. Repair continued. Balance was preserved. Aging became a slow process instead of an abrupt end. Another important aspect of this shift is how human groups reduced external danger. Living together, sharing food, and protecting one another lowered the constant threat that dominates animal life. When fewer individuals died suddenly from predators or accidents, living longer became more likely. This changed the calculation of survival. Energy invested in long-term maintenance now had a chance to pay off. A body that could last longer could continue to support the group. Over time, this feedback reinforced itself. Longer life allowed more learning. More learning improved group survival. Improved survival made longer life even more valuable. Aging, in this context, is not a failure of the system. It is the result of a system that expects time to matter. The body slows, but it does not collapse. It remains usable, adaptable, and responsive. This pattern is visible in how humans age compared to other animals. Decline is stretched across decades rather than compressed into a short period. There is room for adjustment, care, and support. This again reflects a design that values endurance. It is important to note that this does not mean humans were designed to live forever. Aging still occurs, the body still wears down, but the pace is different. Aging is integrated into life rather than marking its sudden end. This difference began early, with slow childhood development, and continued through adulthood, with extended usefulness. By the time old age appears, the body has already been shaped by decades of maintenance. Seen this way, human aging is not a separate stage added at the end. It is the continuation of a long pattern that began at birth. Understanding this prepares us for the next step in the story. If human bodies could afford to grow slowly and age gradually, it means something fundamental changed in how survival worked. To understand that change more fully, we must now look beyond the body itself and examine how living together reshaped the meaning of life and time. One of the most unusual choices in the human story is the decision, made slowly by evolution, to accept a long and costly childhood. From a simple survival view, this choice seems risky. A child who depends on others for many years requires food, protection, and care without giving much back at first. In a dangerous world, this looks like a gamble. Many animals avoid this risk by growing fast and becoming independent quickly. Humans did the opposite. They extended childhood, not by a few months, but by many years. This decision changed everything. A long childhood creates time for the body and mind to develop carefully. It allows coordination, language, and social understanding to form step by step. But it also demands something else. It demands that the body remain healthy long enough for this investment to matter. If humans were to die young, the cost of a long childhood would never be recovered. The years spent learning would be wasted. Because of this, the existence of a long childhood quietly pushes the body toward a longer life. The body must stay functional not only through growth, but long after growth is complete. Another effect of extended childhood is the need for protection. Children cannot survive alone. They require adults who remain capable for many years. This creates pressure for adults to stay alive and healthy beyond early reproduction. A parent who dies too soon leaves the child vulnerable. Groups that could protect children for longer periods gained an advantage. Over time, this protection became normal. Human groups adapted their behavior, and the human body adapted with them. Maintenance systems became more reliable. Repair became more careful. Aging slowed. The body was no longer treated as a short-term tool. It became a long-term investment. This shift also changed how learning worked. Skills that take years to master only make sense if there is time to use them. Hunting techniques, tool-making, and social cooperation all improve with practice. A short life would cut this process short. A longer life allows skills to mature and be applied repeatedly. This increases their value. As the value of learning increases, the value of staying alive longer increases as well. The body responds by preserving itself. Another quiet effect of long childhood is patience. Humans learn to wait. They delay rewards. They plan beyond the present moment. This mindset fits poorly with a fast-burning body. A body built for quick action and early decline cannot support long planning. To support patience and learning, the body must remain stable. This again encourages long maintenance. Over many generations, these pressures work together. Long childhood encourages long learning. Long learning encourages long usefulness. Long usefulness encourages long life. None of this requires perfect health or eternal youth. It requires only enough stability for time to matter. This is why human aging is gradual. The body is not pushed to peak early and fade quickly. It is shaped to last, through long periods of contribution. This does not mean humans avoided danger or hardship. Early human life was still risky, but social care reduced some of the constant threats that dominate animal life. This reduction made long-term investment possible. The gamble of childhood began to pay off. Over time, it reshaped the entire human life course. Aging, in this context, is not a failure that appears at the end. It is part of a system that expects time to be used. Childhood stretches life forward. Aging stretches it further. Together, they form a single pattern. A pattern in which living long becomes meaningful because there is something worth growing into, something worth learning, and something worth passing on. To understand why humans grow old, we must see how deeply this long childhood changed the value of time itself. As childhood stretches longer, another quiet change takes place in human life. Learning does not stop when the body finishes growing. It continues through adulthood and often deepens with age. Humans are not born knowing how to survive in complex environments. They must observe, remember, and practice over many years. Skills such as finding food, making tools, building shelter, or understanding social rules cannot be mastered quickly. They require repetition and time. This long learning period only makes sense if the learner remains alive long enough to use what has been learned. A short life would turn learning into wasted effort. Because of this, the value of knowledge slowly increases the value of time itself. The human body begins to carry not only flesh and bone, but accumulated understanding. That understanding becomes more useful as years pass. A young adult may be strong, but an older adult often knows more. This knowledge can guide decisions, reduce mistakes, and improve group survival. For these benefits to exist, the body must remain functional beyond early adulthood. This creates pressure to preserve health rather than spend it quickly. Another effect of long learning is the way humans handle mistakes. Animals often learn through immediate success or failure. If a mistake leads to death, learning ends. Humans, protected by groups, can survive mistakes and learn from them. This reduces the cost of trial and error. It allows learning to continue without immediate loss. Over time, this favors bodies that recover rather than collapse. Repair becomes more important than replacement. The body shifts towards stability. This also changes how effort is used. Instead of pushing the body to its limits early, humans can spread effort across many years. Strength, endurance, and skill develop gradually. The body is not exhausted quickly. It is used carefully. This careful use slows wear. It reduces sudden failure. Aging becomes a slow process rather than a sudden stop. Another important aspect of long learning is communication. Humans share what they know. Knowledge is passed from older individuals to younger ones. This sharing multiplies the value of experience. A single discovery can benefit many people over time. Older individuals become sources of guidance. Their survival benefits the group even if they no longer perform physically demanding tasks. This further supports long life. A body that can continue to communicate and teach remains valuable. From an evolutionary view, this creates a feedback loop. Long learning increases usefulness. Increased usefulness increases survival. Increased survival allows even more learning. Over many generations, this loop reshapes the body. Systems that support memory, balance, and repair are preserved. Systems that push for early peak performance lose priority. The body becomes less about speed and more about continuity. This does not mean humans avoid decline. Aging still happens. Strength fades. Reaction slows. But the body remains functional enough to carry knowledge forward. This balance would not exist in a world where life ended quickly. It only makes sense when time is expected to continue. The presence of long learning changes how the body is valued. It is no longer a short-lived tool. It is a container of experience. Preserving it preserves what has been learned. Seen this way, human longevity is not simply about living longer. It is about keeping learning alive. The body slows down so the mind and memory can continue to work. This prepares us to understand the next shift in the human story. Learning alone is not enough to change lifespan. It must be supported by living together. To see how this happened, we must now look at how human groups reshaped survival itself. When long childhood and long learning come together, they quietly reshape the entire structure of human life. At this point, survival is no longer only about the strength of one body. It becomes about the continuity of many lives across time. Human children depend on adults not just for food and protection, but for guidance. They learn by watching, listening, and remembering. This process works best when adults remain present for many years. A society where adults disappear early cannot support deep learning. Skills would vanish before they could be passed on. Because of this, the presence of older individuals becomes increasingly important. Their continued survival allows knowledge to remain alive. This changes how value is measured. Physical strength matters less than reliability. Speed matters less than memory. The body is no longer useful only when it is young and fast. It remains useful as long as it can participate, communicate, and care. This shift changes the balance of survival. Groups that protected adults and allowed them to age gained an advantage. They did not have to relearn everything from scratch each generation. They could build on what already existed. Over time, this made survival more stable. When survival becomes more stable, living longer becomes possible. When living longer becomes possible, the body can afford to invest in maintenance. Another important effect of this shift is cooperation across generations. Humans do not live only among their peers. They live among parents, children, and elders. Each age group plays a different role. Younger bodies provide strength and speed. Older bodies provide direction and care. This division of roles reduces pressure on any single age. The body does not need to perform every task at every stage of life. As physical ability declines, social contribution can increase. This makes aging less dangerous. A body that slows down is not discarded, it is reassigned. This reassignment reduces the cost of aging. Instead of becoming a burden, older individuals become anchors. Their presence stabilizes the group. This stability feeds back into biology. Bodies that remain useful longer are more likely to be protected. Protected bodies experience fewer sudden deaths. Fewer sudden deaths make long-term maintenance worthwhile. Over many generations, this creates a new pattern. Life extends not because the body escapes damage, but because damage is managed within a supportive environment. Aging becomes a gradual process instead of a sudden end. Another quiet change is how humans respond to weakness. In the animal world, weakness often leads to death. In human groups, weakness can lead to care. Injured or aging individuals may be supported rather than abandoned. This care allows bodies to recover or continue functioning at a lower level. Recovery and continued function both require time. This again increases the value of living longer. The body adapts to this new expectation. Systems that support healing, balance, and endurance are preserved. The body slows its pace. It becomes less explosive, but more resilient. This does not eliminate aging, it reshapes it. Aging becomes part of a long process of participation rather than a sudden loss of worth. When we look at human aging through this lens, it stops being mysterious. It becomes the natural outcome of living in groups that value continuity over replacement. Long life is not a luxury added at the end. It is a requirement created early by long childhood, long learning, and shared survival. These forces work together quietly over time. They turn life into something that unfolds across decades rather than rushing toward a short peak. Understanding this completes an important step in the story. Humans did not begin to live long because their bodies changed first. Their way of living changed first. The body followed. To see how deeply living together transformed survival itself, we must now look more closely at how human groups reduced risk and changed the meaning of death and danger. As human groups grew more stable, something subtle but powerful began to change. Survival was no longer decided only by what one person could do alone. It became shaped by what the group could remember together. Knowledge did not vanish when one individual died. It could be passed on, stored in stories, habits, and shared routines. This changed the role of time in human life. In a world where knowledge accumulates, living longer becomes more valuable. Each additional year allows more experience to be gathered, refined, and shared. This creates a quiet shift. The body is no longer useful only for its strength. It becomes useful for what it carries inside. Memory, skill, and understanding take time to form. They cannot be rushed. A short life would cut them short. A longer life allows them to deepen. As this pattern repeats, the group begins to rely on older individuals in new ways. They become references for what worked before. They remember past seasons, past migrations, past dangers. This memory reduces risk for everyone. When memory protects the group, protecting memory becomes important. The body that carries it must be kept alive. This changes how aging is treated. Aging bodies are not discarded immediately. They are supported, listened to, and kept close. This support reduces sudden loss. Fewer sudden losses make long-term survival more likely. Long-term survival makes maintenance worthwhile. Over generations, this feedback strengthens itself. Another important aspect of shared memory is prediction. Humans do not only react, they anticipate. They plan based on what has happened before. Planning requires comparison across time. It requires knowing what usually happens, not just what is happening now. Older individuals are especially valuable here because they have seen more variation. They can recognize patterns that younger individuals have not yet experienced. This ability improves group decisions. Better decisions improve survival. Improved survival reduces the pressure to reproduce immediately. Reduced pressure allows slower development and longer life. The body adapts to this new rhythm. It does not need to peak early and fade quickly. It can stretch its usefulness across decades. Another quiet change appears in how mistakes are handled. In groups that rely on memory, mistakes are less fatal. A poor choice can be corrected using shared knowledge. This reduces the cost of living longer. A body that survives mistakes can afford to age gradually. It does not need to be replaced quickly. Replacement becomes less important than continuity. This again favors long life. The body becomes a vessel for accumulated understanding rather than a disposable tool. This does not mean every individual must live long for the system to work. It means that the system benefits when some do. Those who live longer stabilize the group. They reduce uncertainty. They provide context. Over time, groups that supported this structure outperformed those that did not. Their survival was steadier, their knowledge deeper, their lives longer. Aging, in this context, is not a burden. It is the visible sign of accumulated time. The body slows, but the value of what it holds increases. This balance changes how life unfolds. Instead of rising quickly and ending abruptly, life stretches outward. It becomes layered. Each stage builds on the previous one. Childhood feeds learning. Learning feeds contribution. Contribution feeds guidance. Guidance feeds survival. This chain requires time. Without time, it collapses. Understanding this helps explain why human longevity is closely tied to memory and culture. Long life allows knowledge to remain active. Active knowledge protects the group. Protected groups make long life possible. This circular relationship reshapes the human life course. Aging becomes not just something that happens, but something that fits into a larger pattern. To see how this pattern became even stronger, we must now look at how living together reduced danger itself and changed the daily risks that once forced lives to be short. As human groups relied more on shared memory, they also began to change the everyday risks that once ended lives quickly. Living together reduced many of the dangers that dominate the animal world. Food was shared instead of hunted alone. Shelter was built and maintained over time. Fire provided warmth and protection. Tools extended the body's ability to work without constant strain. These changes did not remove danger completely, but they softened it. When danger becomes less constant, the value of surviving longer increases. A body that lives an extra year now has a real chance to contribute more, learn more, and support others. This shifts how the body is treated. Instead of being pushed to its limits early, it can be used more carefully. Careful use slows wear. Slower wear allows longer life. Another important change is how injuries are handled. In the wild, an injury often leads quickly to death. An animal that cannot hunt or flee becomes vulnerable. In human groups, injury does not always mean the end. Others can help with food, protection, and care. This support allows healing to take place. Healing takes time. A body that expects help can afford to repair rather than collapse. Over many generations, this expectation shapes the body. Systems that support recovery and balance become more useful. Aging becomes less abrupt. It stretches out. The same applies to illness. In animal life, sickness often removes an individual quickly. In human life, sickness can be managed. Rest, care, and shared resources allow survival. Each survival reinforces the value of maintenance. A body that can recover is worth preserving. Another quiet effect of reduced danger is patience. When death is not immediate, planning becomes possible. Humans begin to think beyond the next day or season. Planning encourages stability. Stability favors bodies that remain functional over time. This does not mean the body stops aging. It means aging is paced. Decline happens slowly rather than suddenly. The body adapts to a longer horizon. It spreads effort across many years. Strength is used, but not exhausted all at once. This careful balance supports endurance. Over time, these changes reshape how life unfolds. Instead of rising quickly and ending early, life becomes layered. Early years focus on learning. Middle years focus on contribution. Later years focus on guidance and care. Each layer depends on the one before it. This structure only works if people survive long enough to move through each stage. The group, by reducing daily risk, makes this possible. The body in turn adapts to fit this structure. Aging becomes a gradual transition between roles rather than a sudden loss of value. Another important change is how death itself is perceived. In animal life, death is frequent and unpredictable. In human groups, death becomes less random. It is delayed more often. This delay gives time meaning. When time matters, preserving life matters. The body responds by maintaining itself. Repair continues. Balance is protected. Aging slows. This is not a conscious choice. It is the result of many small advantages adding up over generations. Groups that reduced risk and supported recovery outlived those that did not. Their members lived longer. Their knowledge lasted longer. Their bodies followed suit. Seen this way, human longevity is not a sudden leap. It is the natural outcome of living in safer, more supportive environments. Environments shaped by cooperation, memory, and shared care. As danger softened, time expanded. As time expanded, aging stretched. Understanding this helps us see that long life did not begin with a change inside the body. It began with a change around the body. To complete this picture, we must next examine how caring for the vulnerable, especially the old, reinforced this pattern and made long life part of the human norm. As human groups became better at protecting one another, the meaning of weakness began to change. In the animal world, weakness often leads directly to death. An animal that slows down becomes an easy target. There is little tolerance for decline. In human groups, weakness does not always lead to immediate loss. A slower individual can still remain within the group. Others may help with food, shelter, and protection. This simple difference has deep consequences. When weakness does not automatically mean death, bodies can afford to age gradually. Decline no longer needs to be sudden. It can unfold slowly. This creates space for long life to exist. Another important shift is how effort is distributed across the group. Humans do not require every individual to perform at peak physical ability all the time. Tasks can be shared. Younger members can handle physically demanding work. Older members can take on roles that rely more on judgment, memory, and care. This distribution reduces the cost of aging. A body that loses strength is not useless. It simply changes its role. This role flexibility makes long life practical. The body does not need to remain fast forever. It only needs to remain present. Presence itself becomes valuable. Being there to guide, to watch, or to support others adds to group survival. Over time, this creates a protective environment around aging individuals. That protection reduces exposure to danger. Reduced danger increases survival. Increased survival makes maintenance worthwhile. The body responds by preserving itself rather than burning out quickly. Another quiet change appears in how humans respond to injury and loss of ability. Instead of removing the weakened individual, the group often adjusts. Tools are adapted. Tasks are simplified. Care is provided. This adaptability allows bodies to continue functioning even when they are no longer perfect. Perfection is not required. Participation is enough. This lowers the pressure on the body to remain flawless. It can age without being discarded. Over generations, this tolerance for imperfection reshapes biology. Systems that support balance and recovery become more useful. The body invests in endurance rather than short bursts of peak performance. Aging slows. It becomes a long process rather than a sudden failure. Another effect of caring for the vulnerable is emotional stability. Humans form bonds. They care about one another. These bonds encourage protection beyond immediate usefulness. An older individual is valued not only for what they do, but for who they are. This emotional dimension reinforces survival. It motivates care even when practical contribution declines. While emotions themselves do not directly change biology, the behaviors they support do. Care reduces stress, injury, and exposure to danger. Reduced stress supports health. Health supports longevity. Again, this creates a feedback loop. The group protects the individual survives longer. Longer survival reinforces the value of protection. Over time, this loop becomes part of the human way of life. Aging fits within it naturally. It is not resisted aggressively, but it is not punished either. It is accepted as part of the life course. This acceptance changes how life ends. Instead of sudden disappearance, life fades gradually. The body slows. The group adapts. The individual remains connected. This pattern is rare in the animal world, but common in humans. It reflects a shift from replacement to continuity. Life is no longer only about producing the next generation. It is also about supporting those who came before. This support stretches life outward. It makes long life stable rather than fragile. Seen this way, human longevity is not an accident of biology. It is the biological reflection of a social choice repeated over many generations. A choice to care, to adapt, and to keep individuals within the group even as they change. To understand the full impact of this choice, we must now move forward and examine how human populations and generations became structured around long lives, creating a new balance between birth, growth, aging, and death. As human groups grew larger and more stable, another important shift began to shape how life unfolded across generations. Humans no longer lived only among individuals of similar age. They lived in layered groups where children, adults, and older people shared the same space for long periods of time. This created a new structure of life that was rare in the animal world. In such groups, survival did not depend on constant replacement. It depended on continuity. Knowledge, care, and responsibility flowed across ages rather than ending with one body. This structure changed how risk was managed. Younger individuals could take physical risks, knowing that others remained to guide and protect the group. Older individuals could step back from danger without losing their place. This balance reduced pressure on any single stage of life. The body no longer had to perform all tasks at all times. This reduced the cost of aging. When older bodies were not forced into constant danger, living longer became more likely. Another effect of layered generations was patience. Decisions were no longer made only for immediate gain. Groups began to think in terms of seasons, years, and future needs. Children would grow, skills would mature, elders would remain present. This long view changed behavior. Resources were shared more carefully, conflicts were managed with greater restraint. These choices reduced sudden loss. Reduced loss made long-term survival possible. Over time, this reshaped the rhythm of life. Instead of sharp peaks and sudden endings, life became more gradual. Each stage flowed into the next. Childhood prepared for adulthood. Adulthood supported the group. Later years offered stability and care. This rhythm required bodies that could last. The body adapted to this expectation. Maintenance systems remained active longer. Aging slowed. Another important change was how roles were assigned. In animal groups, roles are often fixed and narrow. In human groups, roles can change with age. A person who hunted when young might teach when older. A person who carried loads might later watch children or maintain tools. This flexibility allowed bodies to remain useful even as they changed. Usefulness encourages protection. Protection reduces danger. Reduced danger supports longevity. This again reinforces long life. The presence of multiple generations also changed how children were raised. Care was shared. Knowledge was repeated. Mistakes were corrected gently. This reduced the risk that any one adult's loss would end learning. The group became resilient. Resilience makes time valuable. When time matters, preserving life matters. The body follows this logic. It remains stable rather than burning out quickly. Another quiet effect of generational structure is emotional continuity. Humans form bonds not only within one generation, but across them. Children bond with elders. Elders invest in children who will live beyond them. This emotional investment strengthens care. Care reduces exposure to danger. Reduced danger supports health. Health supports long life. These connections do not erase aging, but they shape how it unfolds. Aging becomes a shared process rather than a solitary decline. The group adjusts as individuals age. Support shifts gradually. The body is not abandoned when it slows. It is accommodated. This accommodation allows life to stretch. Over many generations, this pattern becomes normal. Long life is no longer exceptional. It becomes expected. Population structure changes with it. More people live long enough to become elders. Elders shape behavior. Behavior supports longevity. This loop stabilizes. Seen this way, human longevity is closely tied to how generations coexist. It is not just about individuals living longer. It is about lives overlapping. When lives overlap, experience accumulates. When experience accumulates, survival improves. When survival improves, the body can afford to age slowly. Understanding this helps us see that long human life is inseparable from generational structure. To understand how this structure changed populations over time, we must now look more closely at how birth, death, and age distribution reshaped the human world. When generations begin to overlap for long periods, the structure of the population itself changes in quiet but important ways. In most animal populations, age distribution is narrow. Many individuals are young, and very few survive long enough to become old. Death removes bodies quickly, and replacement happens rapidly. In human populations, this pattern slowly shifts. As fewer people die suddenly and more survive into later years, the population spreads out across age. There are children, young adults, mature adults, and elders living at the same time. This creates stability. Knowledge and care are not concentrated in a single age group. They are distributed. When one generation weakens, another is ready to support it. This balance reduces the risk of collapse. It also changes how reproduction works. Humans do not need every adult to reproduce immediately. Births can be spaced out. Parents can invest more time and care into fewer children. This improves survival. Improved survival reduces the need for rapid replacement. Reduced pressure for rapid replacement allows bodies to last longer. The population adjusts around endurance rather than speed. Another effect of broader age distribution is reduced competition within the group. In animal populations, individuals of the same age often compete directly for the same resources and roles. In human populations, roles are spread across ages. Younger individuals learn, middle-aged individuals produce and protect. Older individuals guide and care. This separation reduces constant conflict. Reduced conflict lowers stress and injury. Lower stress supports health. Health supports longevity. Over time, this calm rhythm reshapes daily life. Activities are planned with awareness of different abilities. Work is shared. Rest is respected. The body is not pushed to exhaustion at every stage. Instead, effort rises and falls across the lifespan. This pacing reduces wear. Wear that is reduced early does not accumulate as quickly later. Aging becomes slower. Another important change is how loss is handled. In populations with many age layers, the death of one individual does not erase an entire role. Others remain who can step in. This resilience reduces fear-driven behavior. When fear decreases, risk-taking decreases. Reduced risk-taking leads to fewer accidents and injuries. Again, survival improves. The body benefits from this environment. It does not need to be ready for constant danger. It can remain balanced. Over generations, these conditions select for bodies that age gradually rather than failing early. This does not require conscious planning. It emerges naturally from living in layered populations. Another quiet effect is how time is perceived. When people see elders around them, old age becomes imaginable. Life is no longer seen as a short race with an uncertain end. It is seen as a long path with many stages. This expectation shapes behavior. People care for their bodies differently. They pace themselves. They value recovery. These behaviors influence health. Health influences longevity. While culture plays a role here, biology follows behavior. Bodies that are treated gently last longer. Bodies that last longer reinforce the expectation of long life. This loop strengthens over time. The population slowly reorganizes around endurance. Birth rates, death rates, and age distribution find a new balance. Humans do not escape aging, but they change its place within life. Aging becomes one stage among many, not the sudden end of usefulness. This population-level shift is essential to understanding why humans grow old while most animals do not. It is not only the body that changed, the structure of life itself changed. Lives overlapped. Roles diversified. Risk softened. Time expanded. Within this expanded time, aging found room to unfold slowly. To complete this picture, we must next look at how this new population structure left traces in history and the physical record, revealing when long life truly became part of the human story. As population structure stabilized across generations, the effects became visible not only in daily life, but also across long stretches of history. When people live long enough to overlap with multiple generations, the pace of change slows, traditions form, habits repeat, knowledge is refined rather than rediscovered each time. This stability changes how societies grow. Instead of rebuilding from the beginning after each loss, communities carry forward what they have learned. This continuity reduces uncertainty. Reduced uncertainty lowers risk. Lower risk supports survival. Survival supports longevity. Over time, this pattern leaves clear traces. Human groups begin to show signs of planning beyond the immediate present. Tools are made to last. Shelters are repaired instead of abandoned. Food is stored. All of these behaviors assume that people will still be alive to use what they prepare. This assumption reflects a longer view of life. A longer view encourages bodies that can remain functional across many years. The body adapts to this expectation. It does not rush toward early exhaustion. It spreads effort across time. Aging becomes slower and more predictable. Another important trace of overlapping generations is care for the very young and the very old at the same time. In such societies, attention is divided across the lifespan. This balance prevents any single age group from being overburdened. Children are supported by many adults. Older individuals are supported by younger ones. This shared care reduces sudden loss. It allows weakness to be managed rather than punished. The body benefits from this environment. It can afford to recover from illness. It can survive periods of low strength. These survivals accumulate. Each one reinforces the value of long life. Over generations, this creates populations where reaching old age becomes more common. Old age stops being an exception. It becomes part of the expected life course. Another effect of generational overlap is the slowing of population turnover. When fewer people die young, fewer replacements are needed, birth rates adjust, families invest more deeply in fewer children. This investment improves survival further. Improved survival allows even longer lives. The system stabilizes around endurance. This stability feeds back into culture. Stories begin to include elders. Memory extends backward further. People measure time not just in seasons, but in lifetimes. This extended sense of time shapes behavior. It encourages patience, restraint, and foresight. These qualities reduce reckless risk. Reduced risk supports health. Health supports longevity. All of these changes reinforce one another quietly. There is no single moment when humans suddenly begin to grow old. Instead, long life emerges gradually as populations reorganize around overlapping lives. The body follows the environment it lives in. In an environment where lives are short and violent, bodies burn fast. In an environment where lives overlap and support exists, bodies slow down, aging stretches. This does not remove decline, but it reshapes it into a long arc. Understanding this helps us see that human aging is not simply a biological feature. It is also a demographic one. It appears when enough people survive long enough to make old age meaningful. Once that happens, long life becomes self-reinforcing. Elders shape behavior. Behavior protects life. Protected life allows more elders. This loop continues across generations. The result is a population where aging is no longer rare. It is expected. This expectation changes how people live from the beginning of life onward. It affects how children are raised, how adults work, and how the old are treated. All of this prepares the ground for the next step in the story. If population structure and overlapping generations made long life possible, we must now ask how early human history reveals this transition. To answer that, we need to turn to the physical traces left behind, where bones, settlements, and remains quietly record when humans truly began to grow old. When we turn from patterns of living to the physical traces left behind, the story of long human life becomes visible in a quiet but convincing way. Bones, teeth, shelters, and tools do not speak, but together they record how people lived and how long they survived. In the earliest human remains, most skeletons belong to young adults. This is expected in a dangerous world, but over time, something changes. Archaeologists begin to find more signs of individuals who lived beyond early adulthood. Teeth show heavy wear, yet remain in place. Bones show healed fractures, injuries that would have required months of care. Joints show long use rather than sudden failure. These signs suggest lives that continued despite hardship. A healed bone tells a simple story. Someone was injured. They could not hunt, run, or protect themselves for a long period, and yet they survived. Survival during recovery requires support. It requires food sharing, protection, and patience from others. These remains provide direct evidence that humans did not always abandon the injured or the aging. They cared for them long enough for healing to occur. This care makes long life possible. Another important trace appears in teeth. Many ancient human skulls show severe tooth wear, missing teeth, or infection. In animals, losing teeth often means death. Feeding becomes impossible. In human remains, tooth loss does not always end life. Some individuals lived for years without functional teeth. This suggests soft food preparation and shared feeding. Again, this points to social support. The body alone could not have survived. The group made survival possible. Over time, these patterns become more common. Settlements show signs of long occupation rather than brief use. Tools are repaired rather than discarded. Fireplaces are reused. All of this suggests planning beyond the immediate moment. Planning assumes continued presence. Continued presence favors bodies that can last. The physical record also shows increasing complexity in living spaces. Shelters become more protective. Clothing appears. Fire use spreads. These developments reduce exposure to cold, injury, and starvation. Reduced exposure lowers sudden death. Lower sudden death increases the chance of living longer. The body responds to this environment. It does not need to burn itself out quickly. It can afford slower decline. Another quiet indicator of long life is burial practice. Over time, humans begin to treat the dead with care. Bodies are placed deliberately. This behavior reflects awareness of life stages and loss. It suggests that individuals were known long enough to be missed. Such awareness grows in communities where lives overlap for extended periods. While burial alone does not prove long life, it fits within a pattern where individuals remain part of the group across time. None of these traces alone prove that humans suddenly became long-lived. Together, they show a gradual shift. More people survived injury. More people lived with wear and weakness. More people remained part of the group despite decline. This is exactly what we would expect if long life were becoming normal. The archaeological record does not show a single moment when humans began to grow old. It shows a slow accumulation of signs that aging bodies were supported rather than discarded. These signs appear unevenly at first, then more consistently. They reflect changes in behavior that made long life possible. Bones and tools do not exaggerate. They simply record what happened. And what they record is this. Humans began to live long enough for age to leave marks. Those marks remain with us now. To understand how widespread this change became, we must next look at how these patterns expanded across regions and time, shaping the shared human experience of growing old. When these archaeological signs are compared across different regions and long periods of time, a broader pattern begins to emerge. Evidence of survival beyond early adulthood does not appear in just one place or one moment. It appears slowly, unevenly, and then more widely. In some regions, healed injuries and worn teeth appear earlier. In others, they appear later. This variation is important. It tells us that long life did not arrive as a single invention. It grew as conditions allowed. Where food was more stable, where groups were larger, or where shelters were better, people had a greater chance to survive injury and weakness. Over time, these advantages spread. As groups moved, traded, and learned from one another, supportive behaviors traveled with them. The physical record reflects this spread. More skeletons show signs of long use. More remains show evidence of care over time. Another important pattern is the repetition of these signs across generations within the same sites. In places where people returned again and again, archaeologists find layers of occupation that include individuals of many ages. This suggests continuity. It suggests that people were not only surviving longer, but doing so repeatedly within the same communities. Long life was no longer a rare accident. It was becoming a regular outcome. This repetition matters because it reduces chance. A single healed bone could be luck. Many healed bones across layers point to a system. That system includes shared food, protection, and patience. These behaviors make survival more likely year after year. Over time, they reshape expectations. People begin to expect that others will help them if they are injured. That expectation changes behavior. It encourages cooperation. Cooperation reduces risk. Reduced risk allows longer life. The archaeological record also shows changes in daily tools that support aging bodies. Grinding stones appear that soften food. Containers appear that allow storage. Clothing becomes more effective. These tools do not require strength to use. They support endurance rather than speed. Their presence suggests that bodies no longer needed to perform at peak power to survive. This lowers the cost of aging. Another quiet sign is the increasing presence of individuals who show long-term wear without signs of violent death. Their bodies did not fail suddenly. They wore down slowly. This slow wear indicates a life that continued despite decline. It fits with a world where danger was managed rather than constant. When danger is managed, time expands. As time expands, aging stretches. Across regions, these changes appear at different speeds, but they move in the same direction. This tells us something important. Human longevity is not tied to one environment alone. It is tied to a set of behaviors that can arise wherever conditions allow. Care, sharing, and planning can appear in many places. When they do, long life follows. The archaeological record does not need to show exact ages to make this clear. It shows patterns of survival, repair, and continued use. These patterns are enough. They show that humans increasingly lived long enough for age to leave a trace. They show that aging bodies were not removed immediately. They remained within the group. Over time, this became normal. As these behaviors spread, the human experience of life changed. Life gained more stages. Childhood extended. Adulthood deepened. Old age appeared more often. These stages did not replace one another suddenly. They layered. The physical record captures this layering quietly. It does not announce it. It simply accumulates it. When we read it carefully, the message is consistent. Humans began to live long enough for aging to matter in many places, not just one. This widespread change suggests that long life was becoming part of the shared human condition. To understand how this affected daily life even further, we must next look at how technology and environment continue to reduce risk and support endurance, reinforcing the pattern of growing old. As these patterns continued to spread, technology and environment quietly reinforced the shift toward longer life. Tools did not only help humans hunt or build, they reduced strain on the body over time. Simple inventions such as better cutting tools, containers, and controlled fire changed daily effort. Tasks that once required constant strength became easier to manage. Food could be prepared more gently. Tough materials could be softened. Heat could be controlled. These changes lowered the physical cost of survival. When the body is used less harshly each day, damage accumulates more slowly. Slower damage supports longer life. Another important factor is shelter. As shelters improved, exposure to cold, rain, and wind decreased. The body no longer needed to fight the environment constantly. Reduced exposure lowers illness and injury. It also reduces energy loss. Energy saved from survival can be redirected toward maintenance. This balance supports endurance. Over time, people who lived in more protected environments were more likely to survive into later years. The archaeological record reflects this in the growing stability of living sites. People returned to the same places. They repaired structures instead of abandoning them. This suggests that life became predictable enough to invest in continuity. Predictability favors long life. When tomorrow is likely to arrive, preserving the body makes sense. Another quiet change is food diversity. As humans learned to exploit a wider range of foods, periods of starvation became less frequent. Shared storage and preparation reduced sudden shortages. This stability protects the body from extreme stress. Extreme stress often accelerates decline. Reducing it slows aging. Over generations, bodies that lived under these conditions aged more gradually. This does not mean aging stopped. It means it unfolded over longer spans of time. Another important aspect is rhythm. Daily life gained structure. Activities followed patterns. Rest became regular. Irregular exhaustion declined. A body that follows rhythm recovers better than one constantly pushed. Better recovery supports long-term health. The presence of rhythm in daily life is subtle but powerful. It allows the body to balance effort and repair. This balance is essential for long life. Technology also reduced reliance on peak physical ability. Tools extended reach, strength, and precision. A person no longer needed maximum power to contribute. This allowed older bodies to remain useful. Usefulness encourages protection. Protection reduces danger. Reduced danger supports longevity. This loop strengthens over time. The environment humans created around themselves became gentler than the wild. Not safe, but safer. That difference matters. Even small reductions in daily risk have large effects across a lifetime. Each avoided injury, each survived illness, adds time. Time allows aging to stretch. The archaeological record captures this through wear patterns that suggest long use rather than sudden end. Bones show gradual change. Tools show repeated repair. Sites show long occupation. None of these signs point to sudden transformation. They point to steady reinforcement. Long life did not appear once and remain fragile. It was supported repeatedly by behavior, technology, and environment. Together, these elements formed a stable background where aging could exist. Humans did not simply grow old because their bodies changed. Their surroundings changed with them. As the world around the body softened, the body slowed. Aging became part of the normal path rather than an early interruption. Understanding this completes the archaeological picture. Long life emerged where daily risk declined, effort became more balanced, and continuity replaced constant replacement. To understand what this means for the human body itself, we must now turn inward and examine how biology responded to this new environment, adjusting internal systems to match a life that expected time to continue. As the world around humans became more stable and supportive, the human body began to respond from the inside. Biology does not change overnight. It adjusts slowly, following the conditions it experiences repeatedly. When lives become longer and less violent, bodies that can maintain themselves over time gain an advantage. This does not mean humans suddenly stopped aging. It means the pace of aging began to shift. Systems inside the body that support repair, balance, and recovery became more valuable. Over generations, these systems were preserved and refined. One of the most important changes involves how the body handles damage. Every body accumulates small injuries at the cellular level each day. In short-lived animals, much of this damage is tolerated. There is little benefit in fixing it carefully. In humans, where time stretches longer, repairing damage becomes worthwhile. Cells that function well for many years reduce the chance of early failure. This encourages the body to invest in steadier maintenance. Another internal change involves balance. Long life requires stability across many systems at once. Temperature, energy use, and internal chemistry must remain within narrow limits. Humans developed stronger control over these processes. This does not make the body perfect. It makes it resilient. When conditions change, the body can adapt rather than collapse. This resilience supports gradual aging rather than sudden failure. Another key shift is how energy is used. In fast-living animals, energy is spent quickly on growth and reproduction. In humans, energy use is spread out. Growth is slower. Peak performance arrives later. This slower rhythm reduces stress on tissues. Reduced stress slows wear. Wear that accumulates slowly allows longer life. The body becomes less explosive but more durable. Another important factor is healing. Human bodies tend to heal injuries more completely than many animals. Bones knit together. Tissues recover function. This does not eliminate scars or weakness, but it restores enough balance to continue. Healing that restores function supports survival across years rather than moments. Over time, bodies that healed well were more likely to survive into later life. This advantage accumulates across generations. The immune system also reflects this long-term approach. Instead of responding only with intensity, it balances response and restraint. Overreaction can damage the body itself. Controlled response protects long-term health. This balance is important when life is long. A body that destroys itself while fighting threats cannot last. Another quiet change appears in how humans respond to stress. Stress responses are powerful but are meant to be temporary. In long-lived bodies, recovery from stress becomes as important as the response itself. Systems that calm the body after danger are preserved. This reduces long-term damage. Reduced damage supports longevity. All of these internal changes work together. They do not create immortality. They create endurance. Aging still occurs, but it unfolds gradually. Decline is stretched across decades. The body remains functional long enough for each stage of life to matter. This internal adjustment does not happen in isolation. It follows behavior and environment. As humans lived in safer, more cooperative settings, bodies that matched those settings survived. Over many generations, biology aligned with lifestyle. The result is a human body that expects time to continue. It does not race toward early exhaustion. It paces itself. Aging becomes a long process rather than a sudden event. Understanding this helps us see that human longevity is not only a social story or an archaeological one, it is written inside the body itself. The next step is to look more closely at specific biological systems that reflect this shift and how they support long life without stopping aging entirely. Another way to see how the human body adjusted to long life is to look at how it manages wear rather than trying to avoid it completely. No living body can stop damage from happening. Movement creates strain. Breathing produces waste. Time leaves marks. The difference in humans is not the absence of damage, but how damage is handled. In short-lived animals, small damage is often ignored. The body keeps functioning until it can no longer compensate. In humans, compensation is combined with repair. When something weakens, other systems support it. Muscles adjust to protect joints. Circulation adapts to maintain supply. These adjustments do not restore youth, but they preserve function. Preserving function is enough when life is expected to continue. Another important adjustment is flexibility. Human bodies are less rigid in how they perform tasks. They can change posture, pace, and method as ability shifts. This flexibility reduces injury. Reduced injury slows decline. Over time, this adaptability supports survival into later years. It allows the body to keep going even when strength fades. Another internal feature that supports long life is redundancy. Many human systems have backup capacity. If one pathway weakens, another can assist. This does not prevent aging, but it delays failure. Delay matters when life is long. A body that fails later has more time to contribute. Over generations, bodies with greater tolerance for partial failure survived. This tolerance became common. Another quiet change appears in how humans regulate effort. The body learns to conserve energy. It does not push at maximum output all the time. Rest becomes part of the cycle rather than a rare pause. Regular rest allows recovery. Recovery reduces long-term damage. This rhythm supports endurance. Endurance supports longevity. Another aspect is how humans process signals of decline. Pain, fatigue, and discomfort are not ignored. They guide behavior. The body slows down when needed. This slowing is protective. It prevents catastrophic failure. In fast-living animals, slowing down can mean death. In humans, slowing down can mean survival. This difference allows aging to stretch rather than collapse. The body is allowed to adjust to its own limits. Another important feature is how the human body interacts with care from others. Assistance reduces strain. Being fed, sheltered, or helped lowers physical demand. Lower demand reduces damage. Over time, bodies that could benefit from care survived longer. This interaction between biology and social support reinforced long life. The body did not need to solve every problem alone. It could rely on the group. This reliance made long maintenance worthwhile. Over generations, internal systems aligned with this expectation. Aging slowed because the body no longer faced constant extreme stress. Instead, stress was managed. Managed stress produces gradual change rather than sudden breakdown. All of these adjustments reflect a single idea. The human body did not evolve to defeat aging. It evolved to live with it. Aging became something that could be paced, guided, and accommodated. The body learned to stretch time by adapting rather than resisting. This approach works well in a world where life is supported by others and danger is reduced. It produces bodies that last long enough for experience, memory, and care to matter. Aging remains part of life, but it no longer defines its end quickly. Understanding this prepares us for the final step. If the human body learned to live with aging rather than avoid it, we must now consider what this means for how life ends. To complete the story, we need to look at why humans did not evolve to live forever, and why aging, even when slowed, still remains part of the human condition. When we look carefully at the human body after all these adjustments, one final truth becomes clear. Humans did not evolve to escape aging. They evolved to make aging slower and more manageable. There is a limit to how much repair a living system can perform. Perfect repair would require endless energy and flawless control. That level of precision is not realistic for a biological body. Instead, the human body follows a compromise. It repairs enough to remain functional, but not enough to remain unchanged. This compromise is shaped by time. When time becomes valuable, slowing decline matters more than stopping it. The body invests in balance rather than perfection. Another important reason aging remains is that evolution works through trade-offs. Systems that support long life often come with costs. Strong repair systems require energy. Strong control systems require complexity. Complexity increases the chance of failure in other ways. A body that tries to eliminate aging entirely would become fragile in different areas. Evolution avoids this risk. It favors bodies that can endure with flexibility rather than bodies that aim for permanence. This is why aging persists even in long-lived species. It is not an error that slipped through. It is part of a stable balance. Another factor is reproduction. Even in humans, reproduction does not last forever. Once reproduction slows, the pressure to maintain perfect function decreases. Maintenance continues, but it gradually loses priority. This shift does not cause immediate collapse. It causes slow change. The body adjusts its effort. Systems become less strict. Errors accumulate more easily. Aging unfolds. This pattern matches the long human life course. Youth is protected strongly. Adulthood is maintained carefully. Later years are supported, but with increasing limits. This is not failure. It is pacing. Another reason aging remains is that the body must respond to unpredictability. Even in supportive environments, danger does not disappear. Illness, injury, and stress still occur. A body built to last forever under ideal conditions might fail quickly under real ones. The human body remains adaptable rather than rigid. Adaptability requires letting go of strict control. Letting go allows aging. This again reflects balance. The goal is not endless survival, but survival long enough for life to unfold fully. Another quiet reason aging persists is that long life itself creates new challenges. As people live longer, bodies accumulate experiences, injuries, and changes. Managing these requires constant adjustment. No system can adjust forever without cost. Over time, adjustments become harder. The body slows. This slowing is protective. It reduces strain. It signals limits. These signals guide behavior. Behavior adapts. Life continues. Aging, in this sense, becomes a guide rather than an enemy. It tells the body when to change pace, when to rely more on others, when to conserve energy. This guidance fits within human social life. Others step in, support, increases. The body does not need to carry everything alone. This shared burden allows aging to continue without immediate failure. When we see aging this way, it stops looking like something that went wrong. It looks like something that remained because it works. Humans live long enough to raise children, build skills, share knowledge, and guide others. They do not live forever, because forever is not required. What matters is enough time for learning, enough time for contribution, enough time for connection. Aging marks the passage of that time. It shapes the later stages of life without ending it abruptly. This balance between endurance and decline defines the human condition. Humans grow old not because nature forgot to stop aging, but because nature shaped a life that unfolds across many decades. Aging remains as the quiet cost of that unfolding. To complete the story, we must now step back and ask what this long life means, not for biology alone, but for how humans understand themselves, time, and the value of living long enough to reflect on life itself. When we step back from biology and history and look at the human experience as a whole, a deeper meaning of long life begins to appear. Humans are not the longest living creatures on Earth, but they are among the few who are aware that they are aging. This awareness changes how time is experienced. In a short life, there is little room for reflection. Life is about action, reaction, and survival. In a long life, time becomes something that can be noticed, remembered, and compared. Humans remember their youth. They watch their children grow. They see the world change while they remain within it. This continuity shapes how humans understand themselves. Long life allows identity to form across decades, rather than moments. A person is not only what they do today, but what they have done and learned over many years. This layered identity would not exist in a short life. It requires endurance. Aging, in this sense, is not only physical decline, it is the process through which experience accumulates. The body slows, but memory deepens. Perspective widens. Choices are made with longer horizons in mind. This shift affects behavior. People who expect to live longer often act differently. They plan, they conserve, they reflect. These behaviors in turn support health and stability. The body follows the mind's expectations. When life is seen as a long path, effort is paced, risks are weighed, recovery is valued. This does not eliminate hardship, but it reduces unnecessary loss. Another important aspect of long life is meaning. In short-lived species, meaning is not carried forward. In humans, meaning accumulates. Stories are told, lessons are passed on, traditions form. These elements require time. They also give time value. Living longer allows a person to see the effects of their actions. It allows regret, adjustment, and reconciliation. These processes are slow. They cannot happen in a rushed life. Aging provides the space for them. Another quiet effect of long life is empathy. Watching others age and change creates understanding. People see themselves in different stages at once. This awareness shapes care. Care reinforces survival. Survival reinforces long life. The loop continues. Long life also allows humans to confront limits consciously. The awareness of aging brings questions. What matters? What lasts? What should be passed on? These questions do not arise in the same way in short-lived creatures. They require time to form. They require memory. They require anticipation. Aging provides these conditions. From an evolutionary view, this awareness is not an accident. It is the outcome of living long enough for reflection to matter. The human mind and body evolved together within this long span. Neither makes full sense without the other. The body supports long life. Long life shapes the mind. Aging connects them. It marks transitions. It signals change. It invites adaptation rather than abrupt end. This does not mean aging is easy. It brings loss and limitation. But it also brings perspective. It allows life to be seen as a whole rather than a series of urgent moments. In this way, growing old is not simply something humans endure. It is something they use. It gives shape to memory, meaning, and connection. Understanding this does not require optimism or denial. It requires seeing long life as it is, a balance between endurance and decline, between continuity and change. Humans grow old because their lives are built to unfold slowly, with enough time to become aware of that unfolding. Aging is the cost of that awareness, and also its condition. To understand what this means for the final stage of life, we must continue by looking at how humans face the end of life itself, not as a sudden interruption, but as part of a long and reflective journey. As human life extends toward its later years, another quiet shift takes place in how the end of life is approached. In short-lived species, death arrives abruptly and without preparation. There is little transition. In humans, long life creates space between peak ability and the end. This space allows adjustment. People begin to slow down gradually. Roles change. Expectations shift. The body signals limits, and life responds by narrowing focus rather than stopping suddenly. This gradual narrowing is important. It allows the final stage of life to exist as a stage of its own. In this stage, effort is no longer directed toward growth or expansion. It is directed toward completion. People review what they have lived. They organize memories. They resolve relationships. These processes require time and stability. They cannot occur in a rushed existence. Aging provides that time. The body, by slowing, creates room for reflection. This reflection shapes how humans face loss. Loss is no longer only sudden disappearance. It becomes something that can be anticipated, understood, and shared. Families gather. Stories are told. Meaning is clarified. This does not remove pain, but it changes its character. Pain becomes part of a long arc rather than a sudden break. Another important effect of this extended final stage is transmission. Older individuals pass on what they know, not only through instruction but through presence. Younger people observe how life ends. They learn what endures and what fades. This learning shapes values. Values shape behavior. Behavior influences survival across generations. In this way, even the end of life contributes to the continuity of the group. From an evolutionary perspective, this may seem indirect, but it is powerful. A society that allows its members to approach the end slowly rather than abruptly can preserve cohesion. Cohesion reduces chaos. Reduced chaos supports survival. Survival supports long life. The body fits into this pattern by declining gradually. Sudden collapse would disrupt this process. Gradual decline allows adaptation. Another, quiet change, is acceptance. In long-lived humans, aging creates familiarity with limits. People learn to live within them. This acceptance reduces struggle. Reduced struggle lowers stress. Lower stress supports health, even in late life. The body does not fight every change aggressively. It adjusts. This adjustment allows life to continue at a different pace. Another effect of a long final stage is care. Humans often care for one another most intensively at the end of life. This care reinforces bonds. Bonds give meaning to survival. Meaning feeds back into how life is valued at every stage. When the end of life is seen as part of the journey rather than a sudden failure, living long becomes less frightening. Fear decreases. Reduced fear supports calm behavior. Calm behavior supports health. Again, the loop reinforces itself. None of this suggests that aging removes hardship. Decline is real, loss is real, but the presence of time allows these realities to be integrated rather than overwhelming. The human body and mind evolve together within this long frame. The body slows. The mind adapts. The group supports. Together, they transform the end of life from an abrupt interruption into a gradual closing. This transformation is one of the most distinctive features of being human. It does not mean humans welcome death. It means they have time to approach it, time to understand it, time to place it within the story of a life lived across decades. Aging makes this possible. It stretches life long enough for endings to be shaped rather than imposed. Understanding this prepares us for the final reflection. If humans grow old not by accident but because long life allows completion, connection and meaning, we must now ask what this tells us about why growing old matters at all. When we gather everything together and look at the human story from beginning to end, one quiet conclusion emerges. Humans did not grow old because nature suddenly became kind. They grew old because their way of living slowly made time matter. Most animals are shaped for speed, replacement, and brief success. Humans are shaped for continuity. From helpless infancy to long learning, from shared survival to overlapping generations, From accumulated memory to gradual decline, the human life course stretches outward. Aging is not an error at the end of this stretch. It is the visible sign that life was meant to unfold slowly. Without aging, there would be no long preparation. Without long preparation, there would be no deep learning. Without deep learning, experience would vanish unused. Aging connects all stages of life into a single arc. It allows childhood to grow into adulthood, adulthood to deepen into responsibility, and later years to become a time of reflection and guidance. This arc is costly. It requires energy, care, and patience. But it also creates something rare. It creates lives that can be understood as wholes rather than fragments. From an evolutionary view, humans did not escape the rules of nature. They followed them in a different direction. Instead of replacing bodies quickly, they reduced danger. Instead of burning energy fast, they spread it over time. Instead of discarding weakness, they supported it. Each of these choices made long life possible. Over generations, biology followed behavior. The body learned to endure. Aging slowed. Decline stretched. Life gained length not to avoid death, but to allow life itself to fully happen. This is why humans grow old while most animals die young. Not because humans are stronger, but because their lives are built differently. Strength is only one form of survival. Continuity is another. Humans invested in continuity. They built lives where memory mattered, where experience accumulated, and where presence itself had value beyond speed or power. Aging is the price of that investment. It brings limitation, but it also brings perspective. It brings the ability to see beginnings and endings within the same life. It allows people to carry stories across time, to witness change, and to pass something forward before they leave. From this view, growing old is not simply something that happens to humans. It is something that completes them. It closes the arc that began in weakness and dependence. It returns the individual to reliance on others, not as a failure, but as part of a shared cycle. Life begins supported, grows independent, and ends supported again. Aging makes this symmetry possible. When we listen to this story quietly, without fear or urgency, another thought appears. Perhaps the question is not why humans live longer than most animals. Perhaps the deeper question is what humans chose to do with the time they gained. If living long allowed humans to learn, to remember, to care, and to reflect, then growing old is not an accident of evolution. It is a condition for meaning. And if that is true, then we are left with one final question, one that has no simple answer and no fixed ending. What is the purpose of living long enough to grow old?